Hey everybody, it is Richard Thomas Railey, and we are now on episode 102 of the Eyes Open podcast, because once you see it,
you can't unsee it.
That's right. Listen, we are excited to bring this podcast to you simply because I think all three of us have collectively talked back and forth over the past few years, talking about all the things that are being uncovered in society, being uncovered in the church world, in politics, and in government. And frankly, we are feeling the emotion of this country. And everywhere we go, we're hearing, the fallout. We're seeing the fallout of people everywhere that are, as their eyes are being uncovered to the truth, there's this cognitive dissonance. Yeah. And I think it's really important that those who know the truth speak the truth. Mm-hmm. I think it's time for all of us as Americans, not just those who have podcasts or who have platforms or churches or who have, radio stations or even news stations, to be telling the truth, because we know a lot of them don't tell the truth, but for everybody to speak the truth from the mountaintops so that, the harvest of God comes in. Mm-hmm. And that is really the mission of Eyes Open podcast. So I am excited today to be sitting on the couch with two amazing women, that I call my friends, Amber Norstrom.
Hi there.
And Lauren Atkinson.
Hey guys, so glad to be here on the couch with you two.
I know. I'm excited about this journey that we're going to take together into truth. And I think today, we should start off talking about something that would be key of importance to both of you, and that is your children. Both of you are moms. You have amazing families. I'm jealous. I'm a single guy and I don't have kids, and that frees me up. But in an instance, it's something that I look back and I'm like, I wish I would have had the kids. You have built beautiful families. And I think what you both have told me collectively is what you're seeing in this country today is almost absurd. And you kind of get that mama bear complex going because you are trying to protect your children with everything that you've got. And what you're seeing in public schools, what you're seeing on the television today is quite disturbing.
It's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they're after our kids, right? They're after, they have a strong agenda. Yeah. The enemy certainly wants to tear down our kids, and he's having his way. Yeah. And yet I love at the beginning how you were saying people's eyes are being open. I feel like we're finally coming to a point in history where people aren't blindly trusting.
Yes.
And so what a time to speak the truth, whether you have a platform or not, right? And so mama bears arise.
Yeah, I think what's happening is they're going, something's not right. Yeah. Something's not right. And the more I keep quiet, it's just getting more and more not right.
That's true.
And it's this building up this pressure to where the Esthers are rising. Yeah. The podcasts are speaking. I love that. Right? So we're speaking.
That's right.
Yeah. That's right. You have yours in private school right now, but you homeschooled for years.
Yes. So I feel like, homeschool was always a thing, but with the pandemic, homeschool really became popular.
It did. Yeah.
Right? In fact, I was looking something up and it was just the rise of homeschool and the fact that they have literally gone. You guys, it used to just be a steady growth of 2 to 8%, kind of just annually, right? But I am telling you, it went from 2.5 million students before the pandemic, and it's now over 4 million students. So tell me the mamas aren't, they're done with it. Right. So we did homeschooling, and now we're doing a private school, which allowed for structure. And I love that. But you actually got a taste of public schools.
I've been through all three situations. Okay. Right. So I went through the private school sector with all three kids. So my daughter's now 20, so she's graduated. And then I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. But we did the whole private school thing from that on. And it was a small mortgage. We all of our money went to the kids' education. We were eating, the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. It was an investment, is what I'm saying. It was an investment. Sure. It's not like we had it like that. We really had to focus. But it got to a point where we felt like that, we already gave them a foundation. All right, let's try this. The boys are really high in sports. We're a sports family. We like the baseball. We like the football. In the private school sector, you don't get much of that. Mm-hmm. And we wanted some money back in our pockets. So we decided to try it. And it was a flop. And it was a flop because my kids were influenced in any way and acting out badly. But I could tell that the way that they were used to the structure, like for instance, the public schools. I noticed that, first of all, there's no more dress code. I don't know what happened to the clothes.
Oh,
right.
There probably hardly were any.
They were none.
Wow.
And now it is what the kids and the parents say versus what the school system says you can and cannot do. So parents, and it should be that way. It should be, parents have a say. But so much so that the school systems are scared to push back on things that are unethical. So like, midriffs in middle school.
Well, I was going to say maybe the parents should have a say, but what if the parents don't have standards?
That's what I'm saying.
And so therefore they're checked out.
Right.
And so now
there's no morality. There's no moral standard,
That's
right?
correct.
It has nothing to do with the educational standard, which we'll talk about that soon. So we had situations like that. My son in middle school, we're talking about, 12, 10, 13-year-old kids, midriffs, micro mini skirts.
Well, kids are getting pregnant too at that age.
Getting pregnant. Okay, and then we go down to the middle schools. I noticed that my son, I had literally both of my kids buzzed in like I was in a prison to get in to see. I have to buzz in. They have to look at my face. It's like a fortress. And I know why they do it. We know why they do it.
Yeah, with all the school shootings.
With all the school shootings,
Yeah.
I get it, right?
Yeah.
So things have so changed. But you get in there and everyone's like, it's almost like a prison. Everyone's in military lines. They sit down for hours. They don't get up. My son, when he would go eat lunch, everyone's quiet. They had 5 minutes of talking, and it was silence the whole time, so the kids could eat. Well, this is it takes the fun, the socializing out of the whole thing.
Now I have a question about that. So
Yeah.
it sounds like the morale was down. It almost sounds borderline dark. Just
It's very
because,
much.
Yes. So was that the school's rules that they needed to be silent so they could eat?
Well, here's the thing. I think everyone's tired. I think the teachers are tired. I think
Sure.
the school system's tired. We have kids. Here we go back to the morality again. Something's going on at the homes, because when kids start acting out, it always starts at the home.
Yeah.
I think parents, we'll get to this too, they're stressed. We've got both parents working out of the home.
Yeah.
We've got kids being raised by other people. So by the time they get to the school systems or they're with the teachers, 8 hours a day, everyone's exhausted. They're acting out. The teachers are trying to discipline. And I think these are just the rules that have developed over just being exhausted.
Wow.
The kids are going to be unruly, so we're going to make everyone be quiet. Nobody talks. Everyone sits where you're supposed to sit. Read whatever we give you to read. Do all your work. The bell rings. Everybody goes home. It's changed.
And think about the relational aspect. So not only are they not building those relationships in that community, but then they all separate and they're on a device. And so that's their relationship. So we're literally breeding this, society and this culture that says, well, I don't really relate to you. I don't know how to talk to you anymore. Or if I'm in a setting, I'm being told not to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And depression and anxiety.
Absolutely.
Running rampant.
Yeah, and then you get to
Absolutely.
the situation where you feel alone, but yet you're surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Right?
I
So-
don't remember this in high school. We both went to public schools.
I
You were
did.
the cheerleader, and I was like the singer, the track, person. I loved high school, but high school was different in the 90s. I mean, school in the 80s was different. I mean, the worst thing that you could probably go through in school is to be picked on by like the jock, the
Right.
bully. You might get a wedgie. You might, get taunted at school on the school bus. And a lot of times teachers would come to the defense, or your older brother or your older sister. I remember I had an older brother that literally went down to found out where the bully that was messing with me, I think my freshman year or my 8th grade year, and he found out that he lived in our neighborhood.
Wow.
And my brother went down and handled it.
Wow.
Went to the dude's door and said, if you don't leave my brother alone, there's going to be an issue. And my brother was the basketball star. He was 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
So that's probably the most that I had to worry about. And then of course, as I got older in high school, everything was fine. That's not the case for everybody. I've heard stories of, just horrible things that have happened to kids, but it's nowhere near what kids are having to endure in 2024
There's
in
no
public
fun.
schools.
There's no fun.
Well,
There's no development. There's
Yeah.
no room to create.
No.
Okay, you and I, we're all creators
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
I have to have an environment that inspires
Yeah.
me to create. Which is
Absolutely.
why I'm always outside, which is why I've got to have if my environment is a mess or it's like a prison or it's dim, I'm unproductive.
Yeah.
And these kids stay this way. They say zombied out.
And yet, do we really think that the public school system is wanting to enhance their creativity?
No.
Speak into
No.
that life into them? No, they're looking for them to literally clock in, clock out,
And that's it.
start to become an employee, recognize your place in this world, and
That's it.
sit down and
As long as this is federally run, instead of kicking it back down to the states, we're going to stay this way.
Yeah, I think you have to look at the history of the school industrial complex.
Yeah, that's good.
If you study the history, you will find out why things are the way they are. I was looking at some notes, some research that I've done at Horace Mann. I don't know if you've heard of that name, but Horace Mann was, the father of education back in the 1800s. He actually traveled across to Europe, to Prussia, which was the German military state. It's the main one that carried all of their soldiers and trained up soldiers in 1830. And he went over there, he traveled by boat, and he went to check out their schooling system, because at that time in the 1800s, obviously, our states, there was a few colonies up and down the East Coast, and then there was some California, population going on. It was growing, but we really didn't have the school system like Europe had, because Europe is older than America. Well, he traveled to Prussia to check out their school industrial complex, and what he found was literal warehouses jam-packed full of school desks with children all dressed in uniform, and they were basically being programmed to become factory workers. This was in the 1800s. And so as a businessman, he thought, why not bring this complex back to America so that we can produce not only factory workers, but soldiers, children that will become subservients to the government. And so when he came back to America, he implemented that in the area where he was. He literally built 2 or 3 different prototypes, and he forced the communities there to render their kids to that complex.
Yeah.
And what happened was John D. Rockefeller, which was a powerful man in the 1800s, he was an oil tycoon. He literally got a hold of this information, and he decided to work with the Washington bureaucrats, and develop the first school board. Okay. And then he put his guy, Frederick Taylor Gates, as the head of that school board in Washington. And then by the 20th century, public schools were in full force.
But what year did you say?
This was in the 1800s.
1800s.
Yeah, 1830.
It's all developing, because we had the stock market crash of 1929, and then they started developing the 401ks and the IRAs, and because people were so afraid to put their money in the stock markets, they developed these programs.
Yes.
Now, what is all taught in these public schools? You go into this system, you get a good 401k, you get a good Roth IRA, you get a good retirement, you get married, you work for the man the rest of your life. See, you're taught this in public school. You're taught how to live in this system.
How to live in the system.
I tell you right now, millionaires and billionaires have never put their schools in the public systems. They put them in schools to teach them how to live outside the system. I just want to let y'all know that. And so anyway, what you're saying is true. It is the system that has been built over the last 100 years to keep everybody really small.
And not only that, but let's think about the public education. They have 15,000 plus budget per kid per year. So you think the public school and the government wants to give up any of this?
No.
Oh no, it's a money
making
maker.
business.
Yeah.
Follow the money.
So they're creating the slave mentality and keeping us stuck in the system.
And then focusing on sports.
Yeah.
We are idolizing sports.
Wow,
Me and my
Absolutely.
husband had to have a sit-down conversation. He's a sports fanatic. But I told Sean, I was like, babe, what are we doing? I said, are we really idolizing football and baseball that much that that's the only thing we talk about when we're talking about schools? Who's got the best football program? Who's got the best sports program? No.
It's all programming. You have to literally look at how the government runs things. They keep people distracted. They keep people programmed. And before the television, we had the school, industrial complex. And right around World War II, you have to look at the nucleus of the family with a father, a mother, and the children. And when you look throughout Europe's history coming over to the colonies here in America, you did have schools. They did have the yellow or the red schoolhouse, and you saw children going up to the age of 10 or 11 or 12, depending on their growth. And you would see them graduating from school and going back home to learn how to work the farmstead. That is because that's how people made money. They would grow crops, or you would see women training up their daughters how to sew and to do things for the family, or to sell, dresses or garments. So it was like a family trade, and trades were big in that time because that's how people made money. But as you see people like John D. Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and you see J.P. Morgan Chase and all of the different people that you would see on the show, The Gilded Age, you see these upper echelon, upper crust Europeans coming over, and they're bringing their business model, but they need people to work at the grassroots level.
100%.
So training up the lower class people and their children to always be in this system, and it's been carried on for hundreds of years. The South obviously had slaves that they imported from South Africa, and they had slaves running the cotton fields, the tobacco fields. And then when the end of slavery came, you saw, oh crap, these rich people had to figure out, well, how do we get people into the system, and we got to pay them. We can pay them a low wage, but we need to somehow program them. I'm not saying that schooling is bad, but you have to look at the bigger picture and how we fast forward from the 1800s all the way down to the 1900s, and now we're here in 2024, where we are raising up indoctrinated children and teenagers that are literally marching in the street. They can't tell you what the policies of the politicians they're voting for, or they'll be marching. I mean, look at the George Floyd riots. Nobody looked into the actual situation of what happened. Nobody did their research. You had thousands and thousands of indoctrinated college students, mind you, that were marching in the street, and when they were interviewed by journalists as to why they were marching in the streets, none of them could give a clear answer.
It's the herd mentality. It's the herd. It's a socialized experiment. It's the herd mentality.
And it all started with John D. Rockefeller.
It was okay. It's slavery with they just changed the makeup. All they did was change the makeup. They made it to where it is you're locked into a lower class society, working for the man, being told what to do, and in lieu of you not finding this out, right? We're gonna make life very comfortable. Right. We're going to get you in debt. You're going to get a mortgage. Yeah. You're going to get in debt with a car. Hey, we'll give you that loan. You're going to get a nice car. Yeah. We're going to get you a couple credit cards because you got to build up your credit. Right. And then we're going to do all of these things to make sure that you're always capped in life. You never go any higher. And that's what this school system has done. Listen, I like the school system for a minute, maybe younger. Let's just go younger age. Yeah. Teach your kids how to read, the phonics, right? Let's get them reading books and things like that. But then the further they go up, the middle school, the high school, the indoctrination begins.
It does.
I left high school, even though we're different than the high schools now. I wasn't indoctrinated then, but I also was very stupid. I didn't learn how to manage money. I didn't learn how to invest.
I didn't learn how
to build a business.
They don't teach
I didn't learn how to grow food. I didn't learn how to sew. They took home ec out of school maybe my senior year.
Yeah, they should keep that in it.
Right? I knew nothing. And so my entire life, I wasn't until I was like maybe 35-ish where light bulbs started going off. Why? Because I started reading. I started reading books on my own. Yeah. I started reading history on my own and started going, oh my gosh. Yeah. Trump. Let's go with Trump. What are who are the righteous billionaires? Give me some. We got Trump. We've got many, all right? Maybe names that you don't know. I'm telling you, they never learned the systems that public school system kids learned. Nope. When you hear about Trump talking about his dad, he learned a trade. He went to the office with his father. He learned business
real estate and
before
development.
He learned how to write an essay. That's what he learned. What do the kids know now to march in the streets? Where'd that come from?
Yeah. There's actually a lot of millionaires out there when you actually read their biography that they didn't finish school.
They didn't.
No, they learned a trade and they were successful at it. And they did it passionately, and they learned at the school of hard knocks. Yeah. And that's what actually taught them more than college. And when you see people like Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, he goes onto a lot of the college campuses. I admire him because he definitely has the guts to go to some of the most liberal universities, and he asks them, what are you learning? What classes are you taking? Right. And when you see what some of the majors are on some of these indoctrinated kids, I feel so bad for them, because once they get out into the real world and they graduate and they have $125,000 in school debt, and they've taken courses that have nothing to do with the American way of life, and they think that they're going to get a job, they are so, right now, the highest amount of unemployed people are college students that have graduated. Sure. Right. Because they can't get a job anywhere.
You know why they can't get a job? Because they have no skills. Yeah. The companies that are hiring people are the ones that they can train and build up on their own, like the interns that came in. People that came in underneath that they already trained up, instead of these college grads who have no skills.
Yeah. Not to mention, think about the jobs of trade. They're actually higher paying jobs.
Yes, because they're dwindling, and we're like, we need you. Yes. We need the mechanics.
All the people are retiring or dying off, and they're like, we need some trades. We need some trades. So of course, maybe the doctors need to go to school, learn about surgery, all the things. Sure. But I mean, think how our kids have been taught through the system to just go to college, go get you some debt. But while you're in school, you're getting isolated, which creates creates depression and anxiety and
Absolutely.
a new mindset that isn't renewed, but instead bound.
Oh my
Yeah.
And they
gosh.
put you in college with a ton of debt so
Yeah.
that you're bound.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they get you out in the
It's the whole
world, and
system. It is
just
the whole
goes
system.
on and
It is a whole.
on.
It's shocking to
It's
see
slavery.
that people go to school, for 4 years, and then they'll do graduate school. They'll get their doctorate, whatever, and then they're socked. Some of them with $250,000 worth of debt, and they're hoping to get a job, maybe at a law firm or do residency at a local hospital or clinic. And then so you have all this debt, and they're just hoping. And then you go into the system of, oh well, I'm either a renter or I've got to buy. And today people can't even afford homes, but those that can, strapped with a mortgage, with interest rates that are sky high, inflation that is literally manipulated and
Amen.
controlled by
Yeah,
all the bankers, by
100%.
Wall Street, which have been lining their pockets, and they're in bed with the government. So they keep saying we're trying to bring down inflation. Literally, our government could stop inflation dead in its tracks if it wanted to. But that would literally put the brakes on their slave program that they've got. So literally, like I like what you said a moment ago. You said that slavery never ended. It just continued on and was put into the corporation complex,
It just-
the corporation
they just gave it new makeup.
system.
New name.
Yeah. So now instead of in the cotton fields, they're working in cubicles.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
From cotton fields to
And
cubicles.
they're slaved. You know why they're slaved? Because I got to pay my car payment. I got to
Yeah.
pay my mortgage. I
Yeah.
can't leave. I'm
I got to pay my
miserable.
school loans back.
I got to pay I'm miserable. I'm
Yeah.
suicidal. I don't make anything. I'm so unhappy, and
Mm-hmm.
I never leave because I'm afraid I'm going to lose my home and my car.
Yeah.
But you're going to the job to pay your home and your car,
Absolutely.
right? Like it's this vicious cycle that they got the kids in that are now adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Well, they're
what
living
is-
to work. They're not working to live.
they're not
Yeah.
living for him. You know
No,
what
they're
I'm
not
saying?
living for God. Absolutely.
living
There's a
for
spiritual,
mammon.
yeah.
They're living for mammon.
Absolutely. And I don't think that's what God intended. And even our
No.
forefathers, when you look at the original documents, I believe a majority of
freedom.
them were all Christians and were Quakers, actually.
Yes.
And when they signed those documents, they said that we were given a certain amount of
Liberty.
a certain amount of freedom that was given to us by our creator. I mean, the specific words, I'm paraphrasing it, but those freedoms were never supposed to be imposed on by the government. In fact, I say this a lot on Facebook, and I say it to my audience, and I'll say it to you again, that when the government becomes too tyrannical, it is the duty of the people to rise up, to dismantle, and to erect a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I hate to say it, but the system that they've created that has been going on for 200 plus years is no longer working. And the people at the top are so self-serving.
Yeah.
They are literally voting based on not on what the constituents needing, not on the best interest of Americans. No politician is. They're voting based on who's lining their pocket next. Where's the money coming from? Where's the lobbyists? Where's the corporations? They're all controlled. Even the Department of Education. It's the biggest crock you have ever seen, because when you look, what is it? The teachers union?
Yeah, a lot of unions.
During the pandemic, all you have to do is just go back and remember what the teachers union did state by state during the pandemic and how they treated the children.
Oh my gosh.
Can we talk about that?
Jeez. They treated these children like, they honestly, in my opinion, like
inhumane.
they were garbage.
Like they were animals.
Like they were expendable.
yeah.
Yep.
You're going to suffocate and put on babies who don't even,
Masks.
constantly.
Yeah.
Stick them in rooms.
Yes.
It was the most grotesque thing. And here's another thing, too, why I think parents now on the other side of this are finally finding their voice.
Yeah.
Because it gets to the point where you're about to explode. You see an injustice and you stay quiet because you want to be in order, right? I don't want to be that weird person. I want to stay in order. I don't want to be. But then you get to a point where you're about to just explode. You know it's not right.
Oh yeah, parents have had it.
You know it's not right, but you've been gaslighted for so long, right? And they've just kept you so quiet. What they did to these kids, and they're still suffering the repercussions of these things. Mentally, PTSD, and instead of they took the mask off, but the phones are still right here.
Oh goodness.
I mean-
well, how long? For some states, California kept their masks on for, I think it was like 3 years into it.
Oh my God.
There were students in California
I did
that
not know
literally,
that.
so they were
I think I did,
sweating
but I
outside. They were going in the playground.
Oh, remember sports?
Yeah,
Masked
with masks on.
sports.
The
That's why I pulled my
funniest
daughter out.
thing I saw, but it wasn't funny, but it was kind of like, oh my God, we've entered the twilight zone, was when I saw a marching band playing their instruments with inserts in the mask. So the mask was over their face, but there was an
There's a
opening
hole, yeah.
where they were playing, and I'm like, that That makes no sense to the logical person.
Didn't you find it bizarre that when you would watch things like that and you would watch the crowd, that everyone was just sitting there not saying a word, knowing how bizarre it was?
Indoctrinated. Nobody spoke up.
It was strange.
Nobody was questioning the authoritarian system. Nobody.
It's the same thing that Nazi Germany did. Nobody, when those car trains, those cattle cars were coming through to take the Jews to the concentration camps,
Nobody
and they
said
were
anything.
screaming, what did the churches do? The churches would say, play the music louder.
Yep.
Nobody would say a word.
Everybody was scared.
They were scared to death, but think to yourself, it's like this mentality. It's like, what are you talking about? If we all rose up together, this is one man.
Yes.
One.
Yes.
We could take this thing down in seconds.
Europe could have dismantled the entire German regime, but because Europe had been propagated, they had a whole system in place, and he wrote those notes in the Mein Kampf, which was his journal. And if you read it, it literally, translated in English, tells step by step by step how he was able to manipulate society to go along with his long-term plan. And now what we're seeing is the exact same memorandum being played out in the American government, and it's taken time. They are very patient. The people that are running everything in America are very patient.
It's a long-term agenda.
It's a long-term agenda, and we are playing short-term games, and they're playing the long game. And that's the problem. See, when parents finally wake up, or I think a lot of them did during the pandemic, people were at home with their kids. They started realizing that their families were actually doing a little bit better outside of the system.
They were talking.
They were playing. Parents actually took control of their families again. And then when schools started opening back up, you see the rise of the mama bears and the daddy bears. So when they went back to public school, you saw the school board meetings becoming meetings where the parents showed up.
Yeah, they did.
And they showed up with a lot of anger about what their kids were being taught. Can we talk about that?
They still are.
Let's talk about that. Have you seen those videos?
The perversion.
Yeah.
Being let in like sewage. Have you seen this?
Well, it's been going on for some time, but the parents finally caught on to it.
And I think we should expand on this in the next episode.
Absolutely.
Because the system isn't hiding their agenda anymore.
Not anymore.
And it's in our faces, and they're loud about it, and it is going to take individuals, whether parent or not, whether grandparent or not, to recognize the agenda, call it out for what it is, and make sure that we are present in those meetings, those school board meetings.
Absolutely.
We are present in those schools, and we are loud about the fact that we see what you're doing, and we ain't going to stand for it.
Yeah. So we're going to carry this on at part 2. This is a 2-part series, so make sure that you visit citizenfirstnews.com. You can click on the podcast button above, and you can hit subscribe. We want to see you on the next podcast, part 2.